Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our YouTube channel, Ga-Pholushe, and I'm Ga-Pholushe. I'm with my beautiful wife,
Ga-Pholushe.
and today we are talking about gender-based violence
Yes, baby.
in the marriage, because we'll get straight to it. We can relate to what has been said in the newspapers about Vusi Thembekwayo, where we can relate to the situation, not to an exact example of what happened, you see. So, if you don't know who Vusi Thembekwayo is, he's a well-known black businessman, entrepreneur, motivational speaker. He's made a name for himself. He's kept his family out of the spotlight. He's kept a clean reputation. Haven't heard anything about involvement with women or scandals like that, despite him being a good-looking, handsome, rich man that he is. So he's now all over the newspapers, and Twitter has taken to dismiss his statement, or the part of it in which he says his wife has a substance abuse issue. And Twitter has now taken a side against him. You see, we don't know if these people in those comments are married people or what, but we as married people would like to speak to the issue because these things are very tough.
They're very tough, guys, especially in a marriage. You know, where you guys have to live with each other, and where you provoke each other. You get frustrated at each other. So we relate in a manner. We've had, physical altercations. It never went as far as the situation Vusi Thembekwayo, but it went as far as you can imagine that. It is gender-based violence. It is not something that we condone. But it is very important to speak about these things as honest as we can, not to try and shy away from them, because it's an experience that any person can go through.
Yeah. Yes. So, like we said, that we'll be open and as transparent as possible in giving you the details so that if you are not married, you can understand what you're headed for. And if you are married, you can somehow learn to deal with the situation.
Yes.
In a way that saves your relationship as long as you are people who love each other.
Exactly.
So, now, on a big work, which
is not a proud thing that I'm get it.
Can you describe what happened,
So basically that day, guys, me and my husband were having a conflict. It started off as an argument, and it came to a point where he got very angry. And I was pleading with him to keep quiet, because I could see that his emotions and his anger, it was seemingly getting out of control, and I pleaded with him to say that, babe, you need to keep quiet. We even called our parents that day, I remember. And they said that we need to stop talking, because the more we talk and we provoke each other, that's when, people tend to get violent with each other. So I pleaded with him to stop talking, and he couldn't stop talking.
I wasn't willing. So here's something to add.
Yeah.
If I remember how things went about, I'm normally a quiet person. I'm normally the one who is begging for there to be
harmony and peace,
and into a gentler voice.
Yes.
I guess. But then this is something Elongoro came to annoy me because I felt like I'm permanently begging now. Wabona? And so there was a day where I just decided in my mind in the middle of the argument to say that no, today I'm going to do something different. I'm also going to shout.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to
you
stop
did.
even if she calls the parents or calls anyone. I'm going to shout over that on the phone. To demonstrate that, listen, I can be a different person. I'm not always going to be patient. When my patience does run out, this is what happens. This is an example.
Yes.
So that day, Tlapa came out.
Yeah, that day Tlapa came out, guys, and it was simply because of what he explained. You know, those are the kind of examples that we can give to say that it happens. You know, he felt in a way that says, would say, no, I'm always humble in our conversations, and nah, I'm always the one who aggravates the conversation. You know, but that day he said that I'm going to be the one who aggravates the situation so that he can see how am I going to handle it. And I failed to handle that situation because really, guys, I felt like to a point where I was now finding myself in a position where I've slapped my husband. You know, it's not a justifiable act, but it is what happened that day.
Sure.
We do not condone gender-based violence, but we are trying to share stories that any woman and any man can relate to. If you've watched maybe ENCA news 2 years ago about Mampincha and Babes Odumo.
All over the news.
All over the news. Yes.
They also had a situation in which there was an altercation, but here they are. I think they're still together.
They're still together even today, yes.
So, now, how we relate to Ya Thembekwayo ne, is a different event to where you slapped me. There's now a different occasion in which I, Mutwag, begged you several times,
yes, yes,
to not shout. You see. And this, even on this day, I was consistent now with trying to beg for softer,
gentler
approach. Yes. I get it. And it wasn't happening. And what I didn't want to happen, in one of our last altercations where there was shouting, one of the ladies in the building heard this, and she went and told another,
and it became a rumor.
And then all of a sudden, now we have people who are coming, looking at us strange, trying to find concern or what is happening between the two of you. You can see somebody heard something. You see, so now I didn't want for an undignified situation like that to take place again, where we are in a temporary heated situation, and now we're going to have long-term consequences and suspicion from people by exactly. Trying to act concerned. So I, with the memory of this situation where a person came inquiring, I had that memory where when I was pleading with you to keep quiet. And Mutwaka, that day you were absolutely uncontrollable.
And it happens so much often, especially with women. I can be honest with that, guys. That's where you find most accusations or allegations about men having, being abusers. It is because basad guys, we really fail, or we are not able to bring ourselves down when we find ourselves in positions where luring rush out.
So what ended up happening then is that I asked you to come into the bedroom so that we can have a civil conversation. What then followed, unfortunately, was you coming into the bedroom, opening the door, shouting, and then walking back away. Out to go shout again where people can potentially hear you. And it happened back and forth several times where I was noticing, or I've begged for quiet, I've begged for a change of location. Both are not working out. And by now, given how long the shouting has been happening, there's a very real potential that now
Someone
somebody is picking up on this, and they are now starting to, or what I mean, to really listen to the whole conversation now. So I then pulled you by the hand into the bedroom. And I pulled you so hard, baby, ne?
Yes,
where
you did.
I pulled you and you just came flying.
I was so angry, guys. Yeah, I got very angry from that. But hey, guys, because we are human beings. They are not asidluche tabishang, but we want to really give justice to these situations with sober minds and clear consciousness to understand, to say we are not perfect people. We are not saints. We get provoked and we react to the situations, and we react differently. Yes.
So I pulled you, and you came flying so fast, and I slammed the door, And I guess at that moment you felt that I'm now attacking, I've pulled you and I've now slammed the door, and now I'm coming to hold you down,
Yes.
And then you start throwing.
What are you doing?
You then start throwing your arms, and as I'm trying to hold you now, simply hold you, when you are already fighting me.
Exactly.
Because in that split second, I'm the dominant presence. I have now pulled you, which is something very rare that happens, and you are now fighting
back. Yes.
And I just had to hold you down, until you just give up.
Yes, you're actually restraining me.
And that's where it ended.
That's where it really ended.
But you see, that is how such a situation can end up on the newspaper.
Exactly.
It's easy for people to hear noisinyana, screamer. They call security, and now there are people standing by the door there. Bomakelwane are here, security is here, and now it just looks like a thing.
Very, yeah.
Or elevator once people are knocking down, because if it's not slowing down with the two of you, when somebody is now trying to investigate,
yeah, because the most important thing is for one party to say, I'm getting defeated.
Yeah.
And if that other party could be a man, could be a woman in that instance, if that person fails to say that I'm getting defeated, then it ends up in a situation where now you guys are literally now fighting each other violently.
And to be defeated, yes, baby, ask you now. To be defeated means to be humbled for starters.
Yes.
Someone does not need to be I shouldn't defeat you or overcome you. You have to be defeated by saying no, what,
I'm not going to allow for this to
I'm not
happen.
going to do this.
Yes.
It's not worth it. If I humble myself towards this person, we avoid potential newspapers as the worst possible case.
And scandals.
So, when we work, as we recollect on these situations, how we finish it, we need to talk handle fell.
It's importantly
the violence starts as soon as the shouting begins.
Yes, that's true.
As soon as one shouts, there's already violence there.
Because people fail to understand there is physical violence and there's verbal violence. So verbal abuse, guys, is also violence. When you are able to just call a person names, especially a man, then clap. But because we are running to the physical violence more than understanding the situation, we just tend to pick sides. to say that because metile then it ends there, we believe the wife because babetile. Forgetting the wife could have said wrong things. I've said wrong things myself. I know that. And my husband has warned me many times about verbal abuse. I've also, been through experiences where I was verbally abused. So I know the impacts of what verbal abuse can lead to.
Sure. So yeah, when people can watch how you speak to each other. The violence has already begun when the shouting is taking place. You see, there's already violence there. We shouldn't define the violence at a point where now somebody touches someone or somebody has now thrown their hand or a clenched fist at someone. You see, so we need to
understand what moment of impact is.
Yeah, the moment of impact where we now say, hey, this has gotten out of hand. It needs to clearly be seen at the point where the shouting begins, because after the shouting, Pella, is like free for all, Yeah,
it's free for all.
Yeah, things can really get problematic and very, very hairy.
Yeah, they can. Because I even remember after we had that altercations where you restrained me and I had calmed down, I even went to the bathroom and I cried, and I came back and told my husband to say that, you know what, I don't want for this to ever happen in our home where we're getting violent with each other. So no matter what happens, no matter how frustrated I can be in our conversation or in an argument, I'll rather walk away from you or just keep quiet and not answer you at all. So that we can save our relationship, so that we can save our marriage.
And with violence being defined at a point where I can now also admit that I am guilty, therefore, of pulling you in that way, and getting to a point where I'm trying to restrain you. So we are all guilty now past the point, because we participated in the noise.
The action.
We went past the noise, and now I went to a point where I'm now pulling you. Anything past the noise, we are all guilty.
We are all guilty of that's very true. Baby.
We are all guilty now, and so the best way to defeat that is to be humble towards one another. It's really, it leaves you sick in the stomach, If you're not used to violence, if you're used to it, you need help. You need to just call the police on yourself if violence is constantly occurring.
Yes.
But I'm talking from a point where I'm not used to violence, and when it nearly happens, it just leaves me sick. And so I'd rather be humble than to be sick, really. Even if when I'm talking, you don't join me in that regard, you see, we still have an authority above us who deals with us when we feel we can be totally out of control, because we know the limits of the other person. When we've been together for 10 years, I can shout until volume 99. 99.
That's the advantage as well.
I can keep it at 99.9. Because I know if I shout 100, it will suga. And when a person knows that, and they are now using it as a tactic against you, humility is still your best option, because there's God to deal with that person.
And surely God will deal with that, because Elena, for instance, I can relate much more to maybe the circumstance of Vusi Thembekwayo, where he even made, he took the accountability to make a public statement. He had a choice of not even making that statement, but he did, which shows responsibility for me. But how Twitter is receiving it by saying that he shouldn't have mentioned the substance abuse problem that his wife is having, that's not really fair to him, because it's now wanting to shy away from the whole situation, guys. I've also been in a situation where I've had anger issues and they would affect our marriage. So it's very important to understand that these things, they are very much possible. Because when you get married to a person, you don't know that they're going to get into... You both don't know that you guys are gonna get into an altercation. And because Omungwe has a substance abuse problem or Omungwe has anger management issues, you don't know when you both are getting married. You only know when you guys are now living together. That's when the true color starts to show off.
Yeah.
Mabona.
Yeah, I think when we've spoken about it well enough until it's not something that we are trying to sell.
Of course.
As promised, we intend to speak, especially having triumphed over a situation. You
yes.
see, we are talking about it. You see, for us, this is also a process for healing and gathering and getting closer together when I'm talking, and that for me is a wrap, and I appreciate having the opportunity to share about that with you and Abibak.
I thank you guys for watching our videos as well. Like, my best advice that I can give to anyone, any married couple, any person who's in a committed relationship, is to say that communication is the key to working things out. The benefits of having deep conversations in a relationship, you're only going to see them as you go. But it's very important that whenever such things happen, you reflect on them. You speak about them the following day or 2 days, or when you've sobered up. When you're able to sit down and say, baby, what really happened that day? Let's communicate.
Right.
So thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe to our channel, like, comment, click the notification bell. And
be humble.
And be humble, yes.
Thank you.
Women, be humble, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Peace out.